We're here for a second live stream, and I'm so excited to be bringing to you the second part of this transformative summer series that we're going through. I'm Michelle Rose. I'm your dedicated life coach, and it is my pleasure and my dream and passion to help midlife women um, fall in love with the women in the mirror. So I'm thrilled to be with you today. I want to wish all of you a happy 4th of July. A lot of people have sacrificed their lives or just sacrificed their time to bring us freedom. And it is really important to me that I honor all of you who have done that. Today's topic, it's actually going to be about finding freedom, but in a way that only you can fight for. So, what are we talking about? Well, how many of you have caught yourself in negative self-thinking loops where you might be telling yourself, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this? What if I told you that those thoughts are holding you back from probably living out your very biggest dreams? Right? And so that is going to be worth fighting for. And so today we're going to dive in on that powerful topic of overcoming negative self-talk. And we're going to explore, how to identify the negative self-talk, how to transform those harmful thoughts that we have that are constantly plaguing our minds, and how to get plugged into a community that will help support you while you are working through this fight to overcome those negative self-talks. So by the end of this live stream, I want you to be able to walk away with practical tools and strategies to recognize and combat these negative self patterns that we have. And I want you to be able to pave a new way to be able to live and walk out this new way where you have positive mindsets and you are actually able to walk and live in your dreams. So I don't know how many of you are ready for that, but I sure am. This is something that we all have to work through. So this episode, it's for every midlife woman who finds herself battling through that self-doubt, negative thoughts, plaguing themselves with the constant battle that we go through every day. And I just, who wants to be free from these limiting beliefs, right? And if that's you, I want you to comment with a heart emoji in the comments below, because we all need to know that we're not in this alone, right? So stay tuned, because we're about to uncover some powerful insights and actionable steps, that can help truly change the way you think about yourself. And it's actually going to be a lot easier than you may think. So let's dive right in and start transforming those negative thoughts and into those positive affirmations. Let me just make sure, checking comments. Okay. So, first, we want to identify the negative self-talk patterns that we go through. And many of us, we constantly criticize ourselves without even really realizing it. So, it may be hard to identify those thought patterns. Phrases like, I'm stupid, or I'll never be enough, or just life just constantly will have a mantra that you will be patterning through with these negative thoughts. And so, it's really not a fun place to find ourselves with these negative thoughts, because they control our lives in a way that we don't even realize. They leave us feeling trapped, feeling powerless, and feeling unworthy over and over, like inadequate. And I want you to think about your own experiences right now. How often do you catch yourself in that loop of negative thoughts, and how does it make you feel? If we were to step outside of ourselves and we were to be listening in on one of our friends and their thoughts and hearing the negative things that they're saying to themselves, we would be outraged, and we would want to make sure to tell them that that's not true. Don't listen to that, right? And so, this negative self-talking, it's not helping you achieve your goals, and it's holding you back and keeping you stuck in a cycle. So today, I am that outraged friend, and I'm here to tell you those lies are not here to help you. They're not serving you, and they're not true. So it is time to break that cycle. And by becoming aware of those negative patterns, you can tell I'm so passionate about this. I keep using my hands, but by becoming aware of those negative patterns, we can start to challenge them and change them. And that is the first step, is awareness. Okay. So how do you become aware? You know, there's a couple of things you can do. One, keep a journal for a week. I'm only asking you to do this for 7 days. I know that sometimes it's hard to remember to journal, so just do this for a week. And I want you to try to notate every time you catch yourself in a negative self-talk pattern. And I want you to write it down, what triggered the thought. And then I want you to put, how did it make you feel? Okay. And here's the thing. So this is going to help you with pattern recognition. And at the end of the week, when you review your journal, you're going to be able to identify some common things that you see, some common patterns, some common triggers in how negative self-talk is even happening in your life. Here's a couple of examples. Okay. A trigger might be noticing the wrinkles and gray hair when you look in the mirror every morning to put on your makeup. Okay. And so that would be the trigger. And then the thought you may have is, I'm getting old. I'm getting unattractive. Okay. Another trigger might be, if you're in the middle of job transition or changes happening there, you may feel the thought of, I'm not as capable as I used to be, or I'm not as valuable as I used to be. Another trigger, I've got several. Another trigger, if you have children moving out of the house and you're about to become empty nest, you might feel a sense of loss of purpose. And so you may tell yourself in negative self-talk, I am no longer needed. Here's another one. If you are experiencing some chronic health issues and you might feel yourself feeling fatigued or tired or whatever the symptoms may be of what you're going through, the symptom, if you're feeling it that day, that might be the trigger. And then you might tell yourself, I can't do the things I used to. I'm weak. Okay. What if you're going through marital issues or changes in dynamics with some friends, relationships? You might be able to tell yourself through that trigger, I'm not lovable. I'm a failure in my relationships. And, there's so many other triggers. I'll go through a couple more, but I want you to be able, the reason why I'm giving you so many is I want you to be able to identify something before you walk away today. Okay, so here's a couple more. We're constantly, especially in this day and age, experiencing societal expectations of us. So to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain age, right? And so that might be the trigger. And then your thought may be, I don't fit the mold. I'm not enough. Okay. Another one might be, financially right now with all of the inflation and everything that we're experiencing. And then here you have, you're getting closer to retirement. And so you might be concerned about finances. And so that might be your trigger. And then you may be thinking, I'll never be financially secure. I'll be able to never make enough to pay what I need to in my old age. And then what about this one? I bet you all of us have felt this at some point in time. And this will be the last one, I promise. But what about when you get dressed every morning? And then, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you start recognizing maybe some extra weight around the middle, right? And then that might trigger the thought of, I'll never be able to lose this weight. Okay. So there's several triggers. I hope you were able to relate to one or some of them. But, I want you to if you can do this every morning, that would be great. But have a mindful practice where you spend a few minutes each day just kind of meditating and processing through anything you wrote in your journal, to look at those triggers, the patterns, the thoughts. And I want you to just be able to think through, how is that making you feel? And in that mindful practice, lay it at the Lord's feet. Okay. Because I want you to be able to imagine a life where your inner dialogue is filled with positivity and encouragement. And let's take that first step towards that reality today by just becoming more aware of the negative self-talk that we put ourselves through. Okay. So now that we've identified the negative self-talk patterns, we're going to go ahead and move on to some of the practical strategies for transforming these thoughts, because none of us want to be stuck in that awareness stage. So we're going to start talking about shifting from the negative to the positive in our inner dialogue that we go through. And I want you to, have you ever wondered why it's actually so hard for us to change those negative self-thoughts once they take hold inside? And what if there were some simple strategies to turn those thoughts around? And, something better than just wearing a rubber band around your wrist and snapping it every time you have a thought, right? How many of you did that? Put it in the comments below, right? I did that. Well, that's helping you with the awareness, maybe, but how was it helping you with changing the thought? Right? So we're going to come up with some better solutions for you than a rubber band. But even when we realize the negative self-talk that we're experiencing, it can actually be incredibly difficult to change, especially when we're doing it on our own. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But um, we might try in our own willpower and have a little bit of success, but somehow it always finds a way to creep back in, because it's usually dug in through a trauma or an experience, and it's down on the cellular level. So it's not often something you can cognitively change. Does that make sense? So I'm going to give you some strategies that actually work around that part. But I definitely understand how frustrating it can be to feel like no matter what or how hard you try, you can't escape the grip of that negative thinking. And, it can often feel like you're in quicksand and you're just constantly sinking and sinking. And so I want to be here to help you with that. And you are not alone to deal with these thoughts on your own. So I want you to real quickly reflect on a time when you tried to change the inner dialogue but struggled. What emotions came up for you? And are your current efforts to shift your negative self-talk truly effective? Because I don't want to try to rewrite something that's working. If it's working, I'm so excited for you, because most people walk around not knowing how to fix this. But if you are still finding yourself bogged down by negativity, let's try this approach that I'm going to share with you. And it starts with bringing it to the Lord. Anytime I can't find a way of breakthrough, I really like the Lord to be the first place I go. So this particular method has come from training that I received through Restoring the Foundations. So if you're familiar with them, you may already know this, but you may have not heard it through this particular way. And if you haven't heard of them, you can Google them and look it up. They're a really great ministry for helping inner healing. There are so many modalities out there, and I love several of them. I've been trained in multiple, but this is one of my favorites for this particular situation. So here's the thing. They call these negative self-talk patterns ungodly beliefs in the Restoring the Foundations. But in the world, we're often told or heard them being called limiting beliefs. So whichever way you want to call them, that's what we're talking about here. But I want you to write down a negative belief that you hold about yourself. And you can steal one of the ones from when I went through all the triggers a few seconds ago and gave you a possible thought if you identified with that. But in this particular situation and exercise, I'm just going to use the one that a lot of us may experience at some point in time. And that is, I am not worthy of love. Okay. So this is a limiting belief or an ungodly belief or a negative thought that contradicts what God says about you. And if you want to break up with this thought or this belief, you can start by saying, I renounce the belief that I am not worthy of love. Okay. Now make sure you only say this if you want to break up with it. Okay. Um, then the next step after you renounce and break up with the thought, because we know there's always these little tangible, it's like a spider web. There's other things you have to break off and deal with. And the next step will be confessing and repenting. And what do I mean by that? So let's just say you have a bum knee and it's caused from a car accident that you were in. And let's say that you've had patterns of negative self-talk around this bum knee and you're like, I'm not fit anymore. It's made me gain all this weight. I'm not as beautiful, or I can't get around and be with my grandkids, or just whatever the thoughts is that you have around this knee. And but the root cause is this car accident that you experienced. And so in this particular situation, you may need to pray for forgiveness if you feel like you caused the car accident yourself. Um, or you may need to ask for forgiveness for the anger and the feelings that you have towards the person who did cause the accident, right? And or ask forgiveness for having this negative thought about your knee, and ask God to help you see yourself through his eyes, because a bum knee doesn't change who you are. It just might change how you're able to live your life. Okay. So forgiveness is a very big part in this. And if you need to ask the Lord for repentance in this particular situation because you've lived in hardship against someone else or even against yourself, you want to take that to the Lord, and then you can say, I forgive myself for believing that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not whatever, right? And I forgive so and so for contributing to this belief that I have. Okay. So that's the next step that you do in this particular method. And then what I want you to do is just spend time in prayer and meditation with the Lord. Ask him to reveal any hidden negative beliefs that might be in addition to the one that you just saw tied to this whole situation. And he may or may not help reveal some scriptures and some other things that are tied to this that you can also manage to work yourself through. Um, and last week I gave you a workbook with 7 affirmations towards self-love and all the things. But this week I'm also going to be giving you 7 more, because these scripture-based affirmations, they just are so transformative because they are the foundational truth of where we come from and who God sees us as. If we're trying to move ourselves towards seeing ourselves in the value of what God sees in us, this is where we go. And so, if our original negative thought was, I'm not worthy of love. If that is a thought that you're dealing with, you can, for example, go to the Bible and process through Psalm 139:14, which I mentioned last week, and that is, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. If you believe you're fearfully and wonderfully made, then it's so much easier for you to believe the truth that I am worthy of love, right? So if you need scripture to help you replace the negative belief or the negative thought, and replace it with the new belief or the truth or the godly belief, that is a really great place to start. And what is very helpful is to be able to take those new thoughts and write them out as an affirmation. And remember last week I said, get yourself in front of the mirror and say these over yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the eye and say it like you mean it. And after you repeat yourself multiple times, your face will shift, your eyes will lighten up and brighten up, because the resistance slows down and you'll be able to start actually believing what you're saying to yourself in the mirror. So I suggest you start with, they tell you in, I believe it was 30 days to say those new beliefs. If you can just get up and say that. And in the mornings, it's so great because it's just the foundation to set your day, right? So, like, if you're saying that in the morning, you are giving yourself a solid foundation to stand upon throughout the day. Anytime that that negative self thought wants to work its way back in, you have set the foundation to say, no, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So, I want you to imagine yourself starting your day with these new thoughts, the thoughts that are going to empower you, boost your confidence, and inspire you to take action. Let's go ahead and commit for a week to practice these strategies and these affirmations and these new truths every day and embrace those godly beliefs and the truth of what God is saying over us to affirm our true value and worth. And by doing it in your morning, like I said, it sets the pace, it lays down the foundation, and it basically draws the line in the sand for what can come into your thoughts that day, right? So now that I've given you a few strategies, let's go ahead and explore how to build a supportive community to reinforce the self-talk and encourage each other, because that's going to help you work through this without having to do it all on your own energy and effort. Okay, so changing negative self-talk can feel like an uphill battle, especially when you're trying to do it yourself and you're doing it alone. And so without that support, it's easy to fall back into those old patterns. And we find ourselves sometimes in a worse place than we started out with when we try to fix it. And so, wearing that rubber band on your wrist, it's not going to work. Again, it might help you be aware, but it's not going to work for long term, especially if you care about fashion, right? Nobody wants to wear a rubber band as a fashion statement. So, the truth is, it can be truly lonely and disheartening when you feel like you're fighting this battle by yourself. And it is only a battle that you can fight on your own, but when you're surrounded with support and encouragement and you have everybody cheering you on, it helps you stay on track, you know? So I want you to reflect on a time when you did feel uplifted and encouraged by someone in your life. How did the support help you stay positive and focused? And if you're able to think of a time, go ahead and comment below how it made you feel to have that support. So let me just check all the comments. Okay. So are you making the most of those supportive relationships in your life now? And are you trying to do it on your own? Right? Because sometimes we forget that we do have people in our life who love us and who want to be there to support us. And so doing it on your own, if you have to rely on your own willpower, woo, you have to be strong every day, every minute of the day, right? But what about when you aren't strong? When you do feel tired and you do feel weak, you know, that's when, if you can lean on others to be strong for you, how's that song go? Lean on me, right? Like, you get to ride on the tails of their momentum when you don't have it. Okay, how many, raise your hand in the comments. How many of you have tried that trick where you're in your car and you try to get up behind the semi truck and get in their tailwind so that you are not having to, have your car work as hard, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. Get in somebody else's tailwind and ride their momentum when you need it, okay? So let's look at how we can build and maintain this supportive community, because that is really important for reinforcing the positive self-talk that we're talking about and find encouragement to help us keep moving forward. Okay, so here's a couple of tips. One, identify your current support network. Look at the people in your life and make a list. Who is positive? Who is encouraging? Who is supportive? And when you have that list, go ahead and reach out to them and express to them your desire to make a change in your self-talk patterns. Tell them that you need their support. And you'll find many of them are like, absolutely, I want to be that for you, right? Here's another one. Create accountability partnerships. So the first one, it's not necessarily accountability. It's just saying, I need you to cheer me on. And if I tell you I'm struggling, I need you just to be strength for me. Okay. The next one, when we're talking about accountability, it's someone in your life. I only encourage you to have one or two of these people because it can be hard to hold yourself accountable to multiples. But who in your life can you trust to get in your face and ask you the hard questions? And they need to be someone who's going to do it regularly and someone you can trust. So it may be a friend, it may be a family member, it actually may be just a coworker that you don't have any emotional connection to, so that when they get in your face, you're not finding yourself being offended, but that's the type of thing we're talking about. Someone who can hold you accountable on a regular basis and make sure that you are practicing this positive self-talk. So once you find that person and you have talked with them and they're like, I'm in, schedule regular check-ins. It's important to put it on a calendar because that stuff that happens on your calendar happens. And when you just vaguely say, we're going to do this, it rarely does happen. So make sure it's on the calendar. Share your progress, share your challenges, and share your victories. You want them to celebrate with you too, right? Here's another one. There are support groups all over. You can go to Meetup. I think that's an app. You can look up online, just local groups that, you can connect with, that they are also working on themselves, overcoming negative self-talk or anything like that. Find a group that fits your needs specifically. So if your negative self-talk is surrounded by weight, look up a group who is there to encourage each other on losing weight or maintaining weight or whatever it is, because those informal gatherings, it creates a mutual support system where you can speak your mind freely without judgment, but also where they all want you to succeed too. And in those type of situations where the water rises for one, it rises for all. Okay. And here's the other thing, share your journey. Don't hide um, from the negative thoughts that you're feeling, because we all have these negative self-talk patterns, every single one of us. And it's actually a natural, reoccurring human nature type of thing to find the negative. And it's designed to protect us, actually, to find the negative so that we can protect ourselves from something terrible happening. But in this particular situation, we have taken it and abused it. And now it's holding us back from being able to even move forward in the dreams and the desires that we have for our lives. And often if we find ourselves with a passion, but we're not moving in it, and it's years later and we're going, why? I know all the things. Knowledge is not going to get you anywhere. It's the actual walking out and action taking that's going to get you to move forward. So the same thing is here in this situation. Many of you already know the negative self-talk patterns that you have in your life. And so you may not even need to have the awareness because you're already aware, but it's the actual walking out and action taking here that we're talking about that you will find change and you will find freedom, and nobody can fight that battle for you. So I'm here to support you and be with you, but get in our Facebook group or get in a group, share your journey, share your experiences. Social media is a good place to share your experiences. It's just sometimes it's not a safe place to go, right? So, but find the platform that works for you, where you find the support and encouragement. And then I want you to sit there and just imagine having a community of like-minded individuals who uplift and support you in the journey, where you're also uplifting and supporting them to overcome this negative self-talk. Here's the truth of it. I'm sure you've heard the illustration, but let's just picture right here in my hand a glass of dirty water, right? And besides dumping the cup upside down to dump the water out, it leaves you empty. So we don't want to be left empty to get rid of the negative things. We want to stay full, but we want to have clean water in our cup. So how do you do that? Well, you pour nothing but clean water until it dispels and gets rid of the dirty water in your cup. And what do I mean by that? Like when you surround yourself with all these beautiful people who are positive and uplifting and encouraging, and you move out some of the people in your life who, or build boundaries of some people in your life who are the trigger points for the negative self-talk, right? You're reducing the dirt that's coming in and you're putting in the pure that's coming in. And eventually you will find yourself with a cup of clean water. Okay. So that's what I want you to picture. And let's go ahead and start building that supportive network. It may take time, but just start with one person in your life that you can trust to be that person, or start with our Facebook group and just come in there and say, hey guys, I was listening to the episode today, and here's the one. I don't want you to work on too many at once because it can feel overwhelming, but just start with one negative self-talk pattern that you have and put it in there. And then we're all just going to pray for you and encourage you. And that way you can stay positive and motivated. So today, as we wrap up today's session, let's go ahead and reflect on what we've learned, what we've talked about. We talked about identifying negative self-talk in the patterns and triggers that we experience. We talked about strategies to shift from negative to the positive in that self-talk, and building the supportive community to reinforce the positive self-talk. So what we've learned and how we can continue to support each other in this journey is so valuable. And I hope that today you learned something new, or that you found something to reinforce what you've been trying to already work on. And I am just so thrilled that you joined me today. Just remember, you have the power to transform your thoughts. You have the power to change your life. You have the power to actually achieve your dreams. And the foundation starts with your thoughts. Okay. I want you to turn your life around and be able to live the life of your dreams. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hello, gorgeous. And just be able to see yourself through the eyes of how God sees you. So stay tuned for next week's live stream, where we're going to dive into embracing the physical and the emotional changes that we experience in midlife. And mark your calendars, invite your friend to join you. It's Wednesdays at 1:30 Central Standard Time here in the Facebook group. And until then, keep believing in yourself, practicing that positivity, because you are perfect in every way. Thank you for joining us.